Okay, so this time I'm going to do a video which is looking at, again, application skills, because a lot of students are saying to me that they feel confident with the content, but they don't know how to apply the information that they are aware of, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a few of these videos whilst I have some time. I'm going to make these videos and I'm going to throw them out there on here for you so that you can see what's available. So this is a question which is looking at your knowledge of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So they've told us some information. So the first thing I always say is students always jump down to that end point and they think that that's where they need to answer the questions. But what they actually want you to note is what they've said above. So water can fill air spaces in the soil surrounding the roots. Right, so we're talking about roots here. And they've then told us that this prevents oxygen from reaching the root hair cells. So straight away in my head, I'm going, okay, they've given me a bit of information, root hair cells. What do I know about root hair cells? So I would actually draw myself a little picture of a root hair cell, very basic. Here's my root hair cell. What am I trying to indicate? Well, I know at the root hair cell, I've got increased surface area. Why? Because I want more mineral, ions, and water to be absorbed. So all I'm doing right now is I'm giving myself little hints. Because they've told me it's a root hair cell, I've then gone, right, what do I know about root hair cells? Okay, I know we've got increased surface area, more mineral ions, and water to be absorbed. Right, mineral ions. Well, I'm talking about mineral ions, so therefore I need to be thinking about transport. And I need to think about water. Well, water we know goes by osmosis. So what are we doing? We need to transport mineral ions into the plant. Therefore, we're going to need, mitochondrion. So I've kind of given myself little hints just looking at what I already know about the differentiation of a root hair cell. Now it's asking me about aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Yes, I would do that, but I'm not there yet. So what I've done right now is I've said to myself, root hair cells, what do I know about them? And now what I'm going to do is I'm now going to look at aerobic and anaerobic separately, and then I'm going to merge the two together. So in the sense of whenever you're given a question, a lot of students go, oh, but I answered it, but they haven't linked those bits together, seeing the bigger picture. There were hints in the question to tell you where to go if you know how to pull this forward. So then I would say, okay, let's go for aerobic respiration. So you jumped straight again to that final electron acceptor. Whereas what I would do is I take a step back and I say, okay, what do I know about aerobic? So aerobic, I've got glycolysis. I've got then the link reaction. I then have Krebs. And then I have my oxidative phosphorylation. So all I'm doing right now is I'm pulling this information out of my head and putting it to where it needs to go. I would also then write my little note to myself, ETC and ATP synthase. So all I'm doing is I'm trying to help myself to note what is happening. Now, anaerobic respiration, what do I know about anaerobic respiration? So here we have glycolysis, but then we don't have any of the others. We only have glycolysis. So what else do I need to know? Well, they told me in the question that we're looking at plants. So because I know I'm looking at plants, I therefore know that glycolysis is going to occur, and then glycolysis will then go through alcoholic fermentation. Because I'm looking at plants, and I know that plants and yeast do anaerobic respiration, which gives me that fermentation and it gives me the ethanol. So it's important that straight away all I'm doing at the moment is I am pulling information from my head about what I know. So what is glycolysis? I'm going to do glycolysis very simplified. I've got my glucose. My glucose is then going to be turned into pyruvate. How is it turned into pyruvate? It's turned into pyruvate through a coenzyme, NAD, coming in and becoming reduced NAD. That will therefore give me the necessary oxidation of the molecule. What do I also get? I also get my 2 net ATP. Very basic. So glycolysis is about the breakdown of glucose into pyruvate. Now the pyruvate, if we have oxygen present, the pyruvate will then make its way through the link reaction to give me my acetyl group, and that will then lead on to the Krebs cycle and so forth. So if that's all present, then that's one way of looking at it. But what I now need to think about is, okay, they've told me that there is water filling these airspaces. They've told me this is going to prevent oxygen. Therefore, this is going to prevent my oxidative phosphorylation. As you rightly said, there is no oxygen as a last electron acceptor. So if there's no oxygen present, I'm therefore saying that none of this is going to happen. So none of that is going to happen because they've told me that the oxygen is not present. The water has filled the air spaces. So therefore, I know this is going to have to go to the alcoholic fermentation. So therefore, what do I know? The first thing I know is that the pyruvate is going to be decarboxylated. I'm going to remove carbon dioxide, and that is going to give me ethanol. The ethanol is then going to act as a hydrogen acceptor. By accepting the hydrogens, it can become a hydrogen acceptor. By accepting the hydrogens, it can become ethanol. And because it's accepting the hydrogens, that is therefore going to oxidize NAD. And that can come back and replenish NAD. And that can come back and replenish the NAD that was needed for glycolysis to occur. So therefore, what we're saying in this question is, because it's having to do anaerobic respiration, it's having to decarboxylate the pyruvate into ethanol, and then it's going to have the ethanol converted into ethanol. That is going to ensure that we're still producing ATP, but a very small amount of ATP. So very small amount of ATP is going to be produced. Now, the key thing to know is, what do we know about ethanol? Ethanol turns into ethanol. Ethanol is toxic. Ethanol is a substance which is going to, at high concentrations, disrupt cell membranes. So therefore, let's go back to the root hair cell. What is a root hair cell? Well, a root hair cell is a cell that is differentiated to do the role that it needs to do. So therefore, if I now go and move on, 1 second. If I move on, I'm now going to look at this root hair cell in a bit more detail. So if I think about this root hair cell, I need to think about the fact that it is basically a membrane. It is a membrane which has very specific structure, which means it has its phospholipid bilayer. Here's my phospholipid bilayer. What else does it have? It has proteins. Now these proteins can either be channel proteins or they could be carrier proteins. So what is important for us to note is, going back, we were talking about the movement of substances through that membrane. What were those substances again? Mineral ions. What are mineral ions? What are we talking about here? Ooh, mineral ions are going to be charged. What does that mean? If they're charged, they're going to be repelled by my hydrophobic region. So here we have my hydrophobic region. So because I've got my hydrophobic region, that will repel those mineral ions. Hydrophobic region. So because I've got my hydrophobic region, that will repel those mineral ions. They can't get through the phospho. We want to get them against their concentration gradient. Roxana, I definitely don't do it to A level. I did do it to GCSE, and I can do it to GCSE, but I've not yet built any resources up, and they take me a lot longer. So I don't tend to do tuition classes at the moment. I may go into it once I've built all the other resources, but at the moment, no is the answer to that one. I do biology GCSE ones though. On a Monday evening, and I'm due obviously the A-level side of things, but at the moment, no. I'm not delving back into physics, although I've taught it for a good 18 years. It takes my brain power so much more. Yeah, GCSE, again, I'm not doing it at the moment, but I might in the future. It depends on with regards to what my schedule looks like, to be honest. At the moment, I'm offering GCSE biology, and I have been approached about doing some chemistry as well, but I basically don't have very many evenings that I can offer group tuition sessions, and during the day they're obviously in school, so I can do daytime sessions, but they seem to be more for the A-level obviously retakes. So yeah, at the moment, no, but do keep a watch out. When I have a bit more time, I'm going to make some videos for my YouTube channel, which will be GCSE based. I'm starting with the biology, but I will be putting some stuff in there. So do keep watching, is all I can say at the moment. God, I look really red because I'm freezing. It's so cold today. Back to this then, with regards to mineral ions and the fact that what you should know is mineral ions, what we want is osmosis to happen. So my key thing was I needed to bring in osmosis. So for osmosis to occur, we obviously need to have a water potential gradient. So what do we need to do? Well, for the water potential gradient to be able to happen, we are going to be pumping mineral ions against a concentration gradient. Word. This is where my brain and my hand don't go together. Gradient. So we want to pump the mineral ions against the concentration gradient. And by doing that, what we will create is a lower water potential inside. Now remember, water potential is all to do with if I have a beaker of water and I put more solute inside, I'm going to lower the water potential. So if I am pumping the mineral ions into the cytoplasm, what that's going to do is that's going to lower the water potential inside. The mineral ions will therefore be moved into the cell against their concentration gradient. So to be able to move against the concentration gradient, we're talking about active transport. So for active transport to occur, what do we need? we need ATP. The ATP is needed to move the ions against the gradient. So in that case, if we are only doing anaerobic respiration, going back to our previous question, we're only doing anaerobic respiration, we therefore are not providing the necessary ATP molecules, because remember, glycolysis can only give you 2 ATP molecules. If I've not got enough ATP molecules, active transport can't occur. Mineral ions are not being moved in. Why are mineral ions necessary? Well, plants are green because they have chloroplasts. Those chloroplasts have got chlorophyll. Chlorophyll needs mineral ions to be able to be made. So if there's no mineral ions, you're not going to have any chlorophyll being produced. The plant won't be able to photosynthesize. Also, if there's no mineral ions, and that's magnesium, if we're looking at specific mineral ion, if there's no nitrate ions, then what we're going to end up with no nitrate ions, they are needed for amino acids. Amino acids are needed for proteins. So if we don't have the ATP molecules that are required, so I'm just going to bring this one back down. We move to the next one. If we go back to the actual question then, what was the question? Water can fill air spaces in the soil surrounding the roots that prevents oxygen from reaching the root hair cells. Use your knowledge of aerobic and anaerobic respiration to explain why, if you overwater your plants, you're going to kill your plants. If you overwater your plants, they are not going to have the oxygen for aerobic respiration to occur. There's no last electron acceptor at the ETC. Therefore, it's going to go down the alcoholic fermentation. So glycolysis gives us our 2 net ATP molecules, but to be able to regenerate our NAD, what we need to do the alcoholic fermentation. Therefore, we're going to produce ethanol. The ethanol is toxic to the plant. Well, if there's not enough ATP, it can't do active transport. It can't move those mineral ions in. Water will therefore not be able to be moving across. And what's going to happen is if there's no mineral ions moving across, there's no production of chlorophyll, there's no production of proteins from amino acids. So this was really, really pushing you, this type of question, to fully understand what is necessary for the movement of the mineral ions in to produce proteins. So it's such a good question, but it's such a difficult application question. So thank you if you have joined me. I will put this video up. I'll be posting more videos like this, and I'll try and do lives whenever I can. If I have some spare moments, I do try and jump on here, so it helps you out. So I will be going live tonight though at 8:30 after I've done my group tuition session. So do jump on at 8:30. I'll have a few more of these videos, or a few more of these questions even, so that I can make more videos for you. But yeah, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you guys later.